Welcome back to another Shamshir Sound video. Today we're going to take a look at the lead used in the latest remix, Tiësto The Business Ali Nadem remix. We're going to explain the bounciness using Fruity Peak Controller and Fruity Reeverb. If you guys are enjoying these quick videos, remember to smash up the like button and let's get started. So let's play a quick preview. If we turn off Fruity Reeverb and turn off Fruity Peak Controller, we're gonna get a very dry and simple sound. What I wanna really highlight is the importance of how Fruity Reeverb is being automated. When we take a look at Peak Controller and Reverb, let's go ahead and just play this back with these two visible. At first glance, room size might not seem like it's gonna have a drastic effect on the sound, but if I crank this up all the way to 100, it's gonna sound radically different. When you bring down the room size, if you have really quick and the velocity is fast and you have those leads playing quickly, try bringing down the room size to say like, in those single digits or just simple double digits, because what ends up happening is you might have a characteristic that sounds a lot more pleasing. Because with my goal, I wanted the reverb to be very tight. And so having a smaller room size with a shorter decay yielded a pretty good result. So this back at 5, let's see how this sounds again. So we get the idea there. Let's go ahead and bring the decay down to 0.3. I think that was the shortest I ever had it before deciding 0.6. The notes ended up having a longer distance, so I liked the 0.6. It kind of glued everything together. But let's bring it down to 0.3 and listen. So even though one could do 0.3, I really liked bringing it up to like 0.5, 0.6 because it really gave a tail to that lead sufficient until the next note starts. So if you're trying to make a really bouncy lead, you can experiment with this. This is something that I really didn't do in terms of bringing down the room size very short and bring the decay really low, because the result ended up being very bouncy, very wide, because the sound is very mono, so the reverb is just acting with a lot of width and getting out of the way, of course, by using Peak Controller and assigning this inverted. We can see here, it gets out of the way, allowing that dry sound to punch through the mix. That's key, but also that short decay is not too long. If it's way too long, it's gonna really bleed into the rest of the mix. Let's make it very long. Let's do like 1.6 and see how that sounds. Bringing it up 0.4, 0.5, if we enter like the 1 or 2 second realm, it's really gonna make it very muddy. It's just gonna keep bleeding into the rest of the mix. Now that could be rectified with a gate. I'm actually using a gate here. I'm using Fruity Limiter. So a quick side tip, Fruity Limiter. If you don't want Fruity Limiter to have any sort of delay, like delay compensation, what you can do is just bring down the attack to 0. So the noise gate is just trimming the tail of the reverb, even though the reverb is fairly short to begin with. 5 room size, like a 0.4, 0.5 second decay. And the other thing is to make sure that the really bright and wide sound is not dominating the integrity of that dry signal. The dry signal, we don't want the reverb to be super bright. Brought down the high cut, brought down the high damping, and that really makes sure that it's not too muddy. When it does play, it's not super crispy. It's allowing it to be a little bit more tamed and that dry signal still being very sharp. Ultimately, I really liked that bounce that it was getting. And then from there, it was just a matter of EQing it how I liked. I had Sound Goodizer on there, had Oxford Inflator, parametric EQ, to remove some of the low end. I also have this ongoing EQ that looks a little bit crazy, but it ended up sounding good. It needed some much needed brightness. And because there's a synth playing, like a call and an action, an A and B, then this EQ kind of helps to color everything together and make it one cohesive package. Then of course, we discussed peak controller, reverb, and Fruity limiter just acting as a gate, Oxford inflator again, and then I routed to number 2 for some more effects. Fruity delay 3 is just being used for like a utility purpose. Towards the end of the drop, it just turns on just to give this tail before the vocals start, just so that it doesn't abruptly stop. Same with endless smile. I just wanted it so that towards the end of these bars, it kicks in and just gives it some sort of reverb tail. And then from there, again, I killed some of the low end as well, because when you're distorting, when you're saturating, you're introducing new frequencies. So you want to make sure you keep that subsonic frequency in check. Pro MB, I was actually just using a preset here. Sometimes the presets are lovely and try them out. The presets are there for a reason. There's no shame in using a preset if it's going to sound good. I added Camel Crusher towards the end after Fruity Blood Overdrive. Fruity Blood Overdrive, I talked about it in the previous video, adds a lot of great grit and body to the sound. Camel Crusher has a very pleasing 16 kilohertz roll off that just sounds so good. It sounds just great on pretty much anything you run through it. It's also a limiter. We had saturation knob to add some more harmonics to the sound. It seemed like it was lacking some harmonics, some drive. And Pancake 2, I've made a dedicated video about this. I was automating the mix amounts towards the end, and that kind of adds that extra panning, if you will, the 1/32. At first, I had it at the full amount, so I had this like cranked all the way up, but I noticed when I introduced kind of that synth sound, it was a little bit too much. It was a little bit overwhelming. So if you're automating sidechain, you're automating like LFO panning, things like that, in case you want it to be a little bit less, you don't necessarily have to go in and adjust the mix amounts of these. You can leave them the way they are and just adjust the mix amount right on the FL mixer. Oxford inflator, again, it's just such a reliable limiter. And one final tip I want to give you guys, if you need your lead to cut through the mix, is sidechain, but pay attention to the mix amount. Often we're sidechaining too much, and with a lead, we already killed a lot of the low end frequencies, so we have that affordance to back off on the sidechain. Because if we play this with 100%, I think it's gonna pump a little bit too much. So with that amount, it still gives the feeling of sidechaining, but that 21% delta still lets the lead cut through the mix a little bit more so that it's not completely dominated by the kick. Still gets out of the way. The frequencies still allow the kick to breathe. So it's about finding that balance. Sidechain is always that fine balance of finding when it's too much or too little. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to smash up the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and that way you're alerted of the uploads. I'm gonna be doing some one-on-one sessions, guys. So if you guys are looking to expand your knowledge, maybe you're a beginner, maybe you're more advanced, you wanna learn more about FL Studio, sound design, mixing, mastering, feedback, hit me up in my email. My email is in the video description and we can discuss more. With that being said, have a great day, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.